First of all, at the outset, I am from Islam, and I am an Algerian, and I do not speak Urdu very well. But I do speak English, and I bring the greetings from the United States of America on behalf of the President of the United States. What I'm about to say does not represent the United States government. These are my personal views. So, thank you, Amit, for a fine introduction. Distinguished guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I want to express my deep appreciation for your warm welcome. I'm humbled and honored to be here with you today. A lot of things brings us together as we're linked by a common goal, common cause, common commitment, and common values and mutual interest. I have utmost respect for all of you. All of us are bonded by shared history, shared heritage, shared background, and shared belief. There is a lot that unites us. There's a little that divides us. Our bonds are stronger than the differences that too often drive us apart. So it is my distinct pleasure to be here today addressing the topic of the role of the media in creating an atmosphere of communal peace and harmony in India. I must confess at the outset that I'm not a media expert. I am a humble person who was born in Aligarh and spent my early years in India, then moved to the United States of America. I received my university education and became extremely successful Indian-American business person. So those experiences provide the insights and perspective that I bring to this talk today. They shape my observations and opinions on the concept of communal peace and harmony, on the role of media in creating an atmosphere conclusive to such a condition. Let me begin by asserting that an atmosphere of communal peace and harmony would not be created by accident. It must be a consequences created through strong beliefs and a concerted and sustained effort over time. It must be an outcome that overcomes the religious, regional, as well as racial boundaries. So how do we reach that ideal state? We begin this with where we are, find our shared values, leverage our strength, and then chart a path to where we want to be. Since I am an Algerian, I'm always inspired by our leader, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So let me draw upon the teaching of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, the founder of Aligarh Muslim University, and Pandit Mandavia, a Malavia. I may not pronounce it correctly. He was the founder of the Banaras Hindu University, where I did grow up. These men were visionary, who saw the world through religious blinders, through an expansive view of what strong and inclusive faith can do to unite us rather than divide us. Pandit Malavia instructed us, India is not a country of the Hindus only. It is a country of the Muslims, the Christians, and the Parsis too. The country can gain strength and develop itself only when the people of India live in mutual goodwill and harmony. Sir Syed expressed a similar philosophy, stating that the graduates of the Aligarh University shall go forth through the length and breadth of the land to preach the gospels of free inquiry, of large-hearted toleration, and of pure morality. While there was not a religious bond between these two gentlemen, there was a spiritual one. Indeed, it might be said they were soulmates. They committed themselves in building bridges of understanding and cooperation among the various faiths. That is why, even though we are here to speak about communal peace and harmony, let me reframe our discussion just a little bit. I prefer to talk about creating a spiritual common ground. That is because its spirituality transcends religious, racial, and regional boundaries. The Spirit is the invisible force that brings us together regardless of our particular predispositions. In this regard, I'm reminded of the words of President John F. Kennedy, who was the first Catholic speaker of the United States of America in 1960, who was speaking before the Protestant Council of the New York City in November of 1963, just weeks before his assassination, said, and I quote, "The family of man is not limited to a single race or religion, to a single city or a country. The family of man is nearly 3 billion strong. Most of these members are not white, and most of them are not Christians." So President Kennedy went on to say, "The members of this family should be peace with one another." So as we gather here to explore the terrain of communal peace and harmony in India, we would do well to remember President Kennedy's words and recall the advice of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and Pandit Malavia. So let us do so not by looking at the heaven and to the gods whom we worship, but by looking at the earth and the people and the family that we are. At that family, let us think and dedicate ourselves of creating a spiritual common ground. In my opinion, we can create a spiritual common ground through a common communion, a common cause, and a common crusade. I know the words communion, cause, and crusade have strong religious overtones. I use these words here, however, in an ecumenical sense rather than a religious tone. Therefore, we need to make common communion by speaking together about how to forge stronger bonds among those of all persuasions. We must establish a common cause by developing a plan what can be done to strengthen those bonds that bind us as one family. We need to join in a common crusade to work here in India to implement that plan and form a universal family. A common communion, a common cause, a common crusade are perhaps strong and abstract terms. So they need to be made concrete and actionable in order to create an atmosphere for communal peace and harmony here in India. They need to be translated into framework for change. There are many things that should and can be done in order to establish such a framework. Opinions will differ on what should be at the top of the list. The ones that I consider most important as priorities and preconditions for creating a communal peace and harmony throughout India are development of the spiritual common ground that I have set, equal opportunity for all, regardless of their faith, their religion, their race, their caste, and their creeds. The elimination of poverty as we know it today, and educational equity to all. So let me amplify what we need to do in terms of the precondition area. We need to work together to build a spiritual common ground. We should expand cross-cultural education, people to people, interfaith dialogue so we can build the bridges of understanding and cooperation. The schools at all levels in this country can and should play a vital role in diffusing tensions and helping our youth understand an evolving environment and the need for collaborations, communications, and cooperation rather than complaint and criticism and conquest. We must work together to find equal opportunities in jobs and advancement for all citizens of this nation, regardless of their caste, creed, religious background, and belief. Discrimination can shatter people's ambitions and dreams. There should be no discrimination or distinction between the various faiths. We will do well to remember that no nation, no race, no religion and no culture have a monopoly on wisdom. Wisdom belongs to all, as long as we value the freedom, justice, and human dignity. But we need to also work together to eliminate the poverty in this nation. Several reports that I have seen have deepened my understanding of how entrenched the poverty into the Indian minority community has become. Poverty crushes the hope of the people. Poverty fuels a dangerous mix of desperation, frustrations, and results in an instability that erupts into community violence. And poverty breeds violence. There is no single magic solution to eliminating poverty, nor can we expect a single entity or to shoulder the entire burden. However, if we come together as people of all the faith and as a united family, we can together eradicate the poverty of this nation. We must work together to eliminate disparities in education. The disparities today in this country are striking. Lack of access to education creates a vicious cycle that crushes people's hope for improvement. The greatest gift we can give to each and every one of you is the gift of education. Education empowers the mind and uplifts the soul. Education enhances the dignity of a human being and increases his or her self-respect. Education strengthens nations. It is a powerful equalizer that opening doors to all to lift themselves out of the poverty. Education is the best investment you can make to build your faith and your future. As President Obama said, education will be the currency of the 21st century. Education is the most important gift you can give to your children. I have been saying we need to work together. So who are we? In the broader sense, we is all of us together. Eventually, this must become a shared societal imperative. More narrowly, the responsibility for initiating and shepherding the necessary changes to create an atmosphere of communal peace and harmony must fall to all of our leaders from all the fields: business, politics, religion, education, healthcare, and yes, even you, the media. Our leaders need to do the right things. This sounds like a simple proposition. The problem in this country, and for that matter in this modern world, is that we have too many people in leadership positions that do not do the right things. They're executive at the top of the organizational food chain whose sole purpose is to advance their own career and earnings with little to no concern for the customers, for the employees, or the community they serve. I do not know what percent of today's executives or masters are doing the wrong thing. I do know that we need more, many more, doing the right things here in India so that we can establish an atmosphere we desire. The good news is that Prime Minister Modi, who I met, and many other ministers in my meetings, several meetings, Mr. Jaitley, these national security advisors, the home ministers, and several others, with this election and agenda, has brought renewed attention, new focus and energy to the areas that I have identified. Mr. Modi is charismatic. We must give our hand, our hope, our help, so that he can transform this nation to its ideals of equality and justice. So there is a definitive opportunity for accomplishing great things. The bad news is that in spite of some progress in the areas that I've discussed, we still need to do and accomplish great things. I'm certain that you are familiar with the Justice Soccer Committee. Reports of 2006 disclosed the development deficit for many minorities, especially Muslims, in many areas, and resulted in the creation of a across-the-board program for the development of minorities in India. So review of the socially inclusive priorities of India revealed the development deficit was being reduced for some, but that Muslim as a group remained tremendously disadvantaged. We have much work to do in working together. This brings me to the role of the media and their responsibilities and their role to ensure that the work is done and we can work together to do it. As I said at the outset, I'm not expert in the media, but my time in the United States has given me exposure and a viewpoint that might be useful. So before I outline my thoughts, I want to celebrate India as the world's largest democracy and the lessons in democracy that India taught the United States and the whole world by the manner in which the recent elections were conducted and the participation of 79% of Indian citizens. The Indian media, in conjunction with their media brethren around the globe, showed a bright light on the election process. In so doing, communicated those to the worldwide. So having exported our lessons in democracy through the Indian media, I think it is appropriate to import lessons from our media from the United States of America. American democracy does not exist because of the media, but it will not and could not exist without it. I do not have time to get into the detail, but it is suffice to say that the free press has been the cornerstone of the American and Indian democracy since its establishment. In the 21st century, the question becomes, what are the key conditions or the functions that the news media should play in a representative democracy today? Professor Michael Sustin of Columbia has identified 6, and I want to outline what the media should do. They are information, provided fairly and fully, investigation into concerted source of power, analysis, furnishing in-depth and coherent framework to help explain complex topics or issues, social empathy, describing the conditions and situation of others in society, especially those who are economically and socially disadvantaged. Public forum, being a centralized communication vehicle for dialogue discourse on the issues and the matters of importance. Mobilization, advocating for particular positions, programs of action. I think that the functions that Professor Sustin has specified apply perfectly to the India's primary role in terms of the media for creating an atmosphere of communal peace and harmony. I would also add a study done by the Knight Commission in the United States on the needs of the communication in a democracy, a communities. Maximize the availability of relevant and credible information to all citizens and communities. To strengthen the capacity of the individual to engage with information. Provide individual engagement with information to the public life in the community. So let me conclude. I have covered a lot of territory. There's much work to do. As I've noted, the work requires a common communion, a common cause, and a common crusade. The work must begin, however, by imagining an atmosphere of communal peace and harmony. Imagining will not make it so, but not imagining will make it impossible. With this in mind, it reminds me of the Beatles song of John Lennon, and I hope you listen to this. Imagine there's no heaven. It is easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today, Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger if family is met. Imagine all the people sharing throughout India. Yes, you may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us. India will live as one nation. Imagine the communal peace and harmony. So there is a start, and that is why we're here today. Peace, love, and understanding to all of you. And for India, just imagine the world to the beings. So let us commit ourselves to extend your hand, your help, and your hope, your voice, in ensuring that India, a nation committed to democracy, liberty, and diversity, lives up to its ideals of equality and justice. So please join me in this journey so we can together break the barrier and the boundary of biases and bigotry. Let us together eradicate the barrier which divides us. There's no place for religious injustice. People need to respect human dignity. People should be treated according to their talents, not their background and belief. All of us will do well to remember all things are possible when we work together, when we learn from one another, when we listen to each other, when we set aside our differences to work for shared goals with a shared responsibility and shared sacrifice. As long as you believe in yourself, the future will be always you. Let us together renew the people's faith in the promise and potential and the possibility of this country. Therefore, you commit to working together. You should commit to pulling together. Your best days will be ahead of you, not behind you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and God bless you all.